The alarm system screamed across the bridge of the Coalition command station. Commander Zelthor's 3 eyes focused on the display showing 20 red dots approaching their position. 20 Krathon warships. His defense fleet had only 12 ships remaining, and most of them were damaged from the last battle. "How long until they arrive?" Zelthor asked, his voice steady despite the fear crawling through his chest. 4 hours, Commander," his tactical officer replied. The young Quillarian's skin had turned pale blue, a sign of stress among their species. Zelthor looked at the planet below. Viridian Prime held 3 million Coalition citizens, families, children, scientists who had dedicated their lives to peace and knowledge. They trusted him to protect them. But he was running out of options. The war with the Krathon Empire had been going badly for 6 months. The Coalition had never faced an enemy like this. For thousands of years, the Galactic Coalition had existed in relative peace. Small disputes, yes, but nothing like this. The Krathon Empire wanted to conquer and dominate. They enjoyed war. They were good at it. The Coalition species were not warriors. They were explorers, scientists, traders, and diplomats. Their weapons were designed for defense, not conquest. Their soldiers were trained in peacekeeping, not brutal combat. Every battle showed them how unprepared they were. "Send another request for reinforcements," Zelthor ordered. "Broadcast it to all Coalition worlds. Someone must be able to help us." His communication officer nodded and began transmitting. Zelthor knew it was probably useless. Every Coalition world had already sent what they could spare. Most of their fleets were defending their own territories. He was asking for help that might not exist. But he had to try. Hours passed with agonizing slowness. The Krathon fleet drew closer. Zelthor prepared his ships for battle, knowing it would likely be their last. He had written his farewell message to his family. Many of his crew had done the same. Then something unexpected happened. "Commander, we have a response to our distress call," the communication officer said, her antenna twitching with surprise. "From which world?" Zelthor asked, hope rising in his chest. "It is from a planet called Earth, sir. The records show it is a newly discovered world on the outer rim. They say they are sending military assistance." Zelthor pulled up the information on Earth. He had heard of this world. First contact had happened only 3 months ago. The species there called themselves humans. The initial reports had been strange. Earth was classified as a Class 12 deathworld. Most Coalition species evolved on Class 3 or Class 4 worlds, where conditions were stable and safe. Class 12 meant Earth was dangerous. High gravity, extreme temperature variations, aggressive microbiology, numerous natural disasters. The Coalition scientists had been amazed that intelligent life had evolved there at all. "How many ships are they sending?" Zelthor asked. "1 transport vessel, Commander. They say it carries a combat unit. 1 ship." Zelthor felt his hope drain away. What could 1 ship do against 20 Krathon warships? But he could not refuse help, no matter how small. "Tell them they are cleared to approach," he said, "and thank them for their courage." The human transport ship arrived 2 hours before the Krathon fleet. It was smaller than Zelthor expected, a simple military vessel with no impressive weapons visible on its hull. It docked with the command station smoothly. "The humans are requesting permission to come aboard," the communication officer said. "Grant it. I will meet them in the main docking bay." Zelthor walked to the docking area with his command staff. He wanted to greet these brave beings who had traveled so far to help, even if their contribution would be small. The Coalition valued such gestures of solidarity. The airlock door opened with a hiss. The first human stepped through, and Zelthor had to stop himself from stepping back in shock. The human was tall, much taller than any Quillarian. He stood at least 2 heads higher than Zelthor. His body was thick with muscle, and he moved with a confident stride that spoke of strength. His skin was tan, weathered with small scars visible on his arms. His eyes were a striking blue color, sharp and alert, constantly scanning the room. "Commander Zelthor?" the human said, his voice deep and strong. "I am Captain Jake Morrison, United States Marine Corps, Earth Expeditionary Force. Zelthor extended his hand in the human greeting he had learned from the diplomatic reports. Morrison's grip was firm, almost crushing. The human was being gentle, Zelthor realized with alarm. This was him holding back. "Welcome, Captain Morrison. We are grateful for your assistance, though I fear the situation is more dire than you may realize." "We understand the situation, Commander," Morrison said. "We have been fully briefed. 20 Krathon ships inbound, and you have 12 damaged vessels. Not great odds." Behind Morrison, more humans filed into the docking bay. Zelthor counted them quickly. 50, 100, 200. They all wore combat armor in dark green and tan colors. They carried weapons that looked heavy and brutal. Each human looked like they could fight alone and win, but there were only 200 of them. "Captain Morrison," Zelthor said carefully, "I do not wish to seem ungrateful, but 200 soldiers cannot possibly make a significant difference against the force we are facing." Morrison smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of a predator who had spotted prey. "Commander, on Earth, we have a saying. It is not the size of the dog in the fight, but the size of the fight in the dog. Let us show you what humans can do." A female human stepped forward next to Morrison. She was shorter but moved with the same dangerous grace. Her dark hair was pulled back tightly, and her brown eyes were cold and professional. "This is Lieutenant Amy Chen, my second in command," Morrison said. Amy nodded at Zelthor. "Commander, we need to review your defensive positions and battle plans. The Krathon fleet will be here soon and we need to prepare." Zelthor led the humans to the command center. His staff stared at the newcomers with a mixture of curiosity and concern. Humans looked so different from any species they had encountered. They moved like predators, every step purposeful and controlled. In the command center, Morrison and Chen studied the tactical displays. Zelthor explained their defensive strategy, which mostly involved trying to hold position as long as possible and evacuate civilians to underground shelters. Morrison shook his head. "That is a losing strategy, Commander. If you let them dictate the terms of engagement, you have already lost." "What do you suggest?" Zelthor asked, feeling defensive but also curious. "We attack first," Morrison said simply. "Hit them before they expect it. Take out their command ship early, disrupt their formation, make them react to us instead of executing their plan." Zelthor's tactical officer gasped. "That is suicide. Their fleet is larger and more powerful." Morrison looked at the young Quillarian with those sharp blue eyes. "Son, I have been in worse situations. Trust me, this is manageable." "How can you possibly believe that?" the tactical officer demanded. Amy Chen stepped forward. "Because we are humans from Earth, and Earth taught us how to fight against impossible odds every single day." Zelthor did not understand what she meant, but something in her voice made him believe her. These humans had a confidence that none of his people possessed. They were not afraid. They were eager. "Very well," Zelthor said, making a decision that might doom them all or save them. "We will follow your plan, Captain Morrison. Tell us what you need." Morrison's smile widened. "I need your fastest ships ready to move. I need your best pilots. And I need you to trust that we know what we are doing." Over the next hour, Morrison and Chen reorganized the entire defense plan. They split the coalition fleet into smaller, more mobile groups. They positioned human soldiers on key ships and stations. They set up ambush points and fallback positions. Zelthor watched in amazement as the humans worked. They moved with incredible efficiency. They spoke in short, clear sentences. They never seemed to tire or hesitate. His own crew began to feed off their energy, working harder and faster than before. A large human soldier approached Zelthor. His armor showed sergeant stripes. His face was hard and scarred, with gray at his temples. He looked like he had been in 1,000 battles. "Commander Zelthor, I am Sergeant Kyle Bennett. My squad will be defending the main reactor level. We will hold it no matter what comes through those doors." "Sergeant, that level is likely to face the heaviest boarding action if the Krathon breach our hull. Are you certain your squad can hold it?" Bennett's expression did not change. "Sir, I held a mountain pass in Afghanistan against 400 enemy fighters with 30 men for 2 days. I held a bridge in Syria with 12 men for 8 hours. I will hold your reactor room with 40 Marines as long as you need me to. That is a promise. Zelthor did not know where Afghanistan or Syria were, but he believed the sergeant. This human had seen war and survived it. More than survived. He had won. Thank you, Sergeant, Zelthor said quietly. Bennett nodded and walked away to position his squad. The alert sounded again. The Krathon fleet had arrived early. They were dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. 20 ships confirmed, the tactical officer reported. They are forming their standard attack formation. They are moving toward us. All ships, prepare for combat, Morrison ordered, his voice calm and clear. Execute Plan Alpha on my mark. Zelthor felt his heart's pounding. This war. The coalition fleet struck first, and the Krathon commanders were shocked. For the first time in the war, their prey had attacked them. The element of surprise gave the coalition precious seconds. Morrison watched the battle unfold on the tactical display. His plan was working. The coalition ships moved in patterns the Krathon did not expect, striking fast and retreating before the enemy could respond effectively. 3 Krathon ships damaged, the tactical officer reported, excitement in his voice. Their formation is breaking. Do not let up, Morrison ordered. Keep hitting them. Do not give them time to regroup. Amy Chen stood beside him, coordinating the human forces spread across different ships. All Marine units report ready, Captain. If they try to board, we will be waiting. Zelthor watched Morrison work. The human captain was calm, his movements precise. He did not panic or hesitate. He made decisions quickly and moved on to the next problem. This was a being who had been trained for war his entire life. The Krathon fleet recovered from their surprise and began their counterattack. Their ships were powerful and their weapons hit hard. 2 coalition vessels took heavy damage and had to fall back. Krathon boarding pods launching, the sensor officer called out. Multiple incoming. Here we go, Morrison said quietly. All human units prepare for close combat. The boarding pods slammed into the command station's hull in different sections. Alarms blared as the Krathon soldiers cut through the outer doors and began pouring into the corridors. Sergeant Kyle Bennett stood in the main reactor level with his squad. 40 Marines, all wearing full combat armor, all carrying weapons that looked like they belonged in a nightmare. They had set up defensive positions with clear fields of fire. Bennett checked his rifle one more time. The weapon was loaded with armor-piercing rounds capable of punching through Krathon battlesuits. Behind him, a young Marine named Tony Cruz looked nervous. First time in space combat, Cruz? Bennett asked. Yes, Sergeant, Cruz admitted. Just remember your training. Aim center mass, short controlled bursts. Watch your corners. You will be fine. The reactor room doors exploded inward. Krathon soldiers charged through the smoke, roaring their battle cries. They were large creatures standing 7 feet tall with thick armored skin and 4 powerful arms. They carried heavy plasma weapons and moved with speed and aggression. They ran straight into a wall of human gunfire. Bennett's squad opened fire with devastating precision. The reactor room became a thunder of weapons fire. Krathon soldiers fell, their armor failing against the concentrated human firepower. But more kept coming. The Krathon were brave warriors trained for conquest. They did not retreat easily. Left flank, more coming through, a Marine shouted. Bennett turned and fired, dropping 3 Krathon soldiers in quick succession. His rifle clicked empty. Without hesitation, he dropped it and drew his sidearm, continuing to fire while reaching for a fresh magazine. A Krathon soldier made it through the defensive line and charged at Bennett with a combat blade. Bennett sidestepped the attack, grabbed the creature's arm and used its own momentum to throw it into a bulkhead. The Krathon crashed into the metal wall hard enough to dent it. Cruz stared in shock. Sergeant Bennett had just thrown a 7-foot-tall, 300-pound alien warrior like it weighed nothing. Bennett finished reloading and returned to firing position. Eyes front, Cruz. More coming! The battle in the reactor room lasted for an hour. Wave after wave of Krathon soldiers tried to take the position. None of them made it past Bennett's squad. On the command bridge, Dr. Venlith had been monitoring the human soldiers' biological readings. The Palaxian medic was looking at his screens with growing horror and confusion. Commander Zelthor, you need to see this, Venlith said, his tentacles trembling. Zelthor walked over to the medical station. What is wrong, Doctor? The humans. Venlith said, pointing at the displays. Look at their vital signs during combat. Zelthor looked at the readings. Heart rates elevated, adrenaline levels spiking, body temperatures rising. But none of the humans showed signs of exhaustion or failure. They just kept fighting. I do not understand, Zelthor said. Explain what I am seeing. During combat, the human body releases chemicals that increase strength, speed, and pain tolerance, Venlith explained. They call it an adrenaline response. But the levels they are producing would kill most coalition species. Their hearts are beating at rates that should cause cardiac failure, yet they show no signs of distress. How is that possible? Earth, Commander. That deathworld forced them to evolve bodies that can function under extreme stress. They are designed for survival in conditions that would kill us. Morrison approached them. Problem, Commander? Dr. Venlith is concerned about your soldiers' vital signs, Zelthor said. Morrison glanced at the displays and shrugged. Those are normal combat readings for humans. We are built for this. Built for this? Venlith said, his voice rising. Captain, your sergeant in the reactor room has been fighting continuously for over an hour. His body temperature is dangerously high. His muscles should be failing from lactic acid buildup. He has sustained 3 injuries that would incapacitate any of my people. Yet he continues fighting at full capacity. Morrison smiled slightly. Bennett is former Special Forces. He has fought in worse conditions for longer periods. He will hold that position until I tell him to stand down, or until he physically cannot move anymore. And trust me, it takes a lot to make a Marine unable to move. A new alarm sounded. More Krathon boarding pods were incoming, targeting the medical bay. Medical bay is a priority target, Amy Chen said. If they take it, our wounded will be defenseless. I will send a security team, Zelthor began. No time, Morrison said. He tapped his communication device. Lieutenant Chen, take Squad 3 and secure the medical bay. Fast assault. Amy nodded and moved quickly, gathering her squad. 12 Marines followed her out of the command center at a run. Captain, that is only 13 soldiers, Zelthor protested. The Krathon typically send 30 warriors for a boarding action of that size. Then the Krathon are going to have a bad day, Morrison said simply. Amy Chen and her squad reached the medical bay 3 minutes before the Krathon boarding pod hit. They took positions using medical equipment and beds as cover. Set up crossfire, Amy ordered. No one gets past us. A young Marine named Lisa Rodriguez positioned herself near the main door with a heavy support weapon. The weapon was designed to be mounted on a tripod. Lisa was holding it in her arms like a regular rifle. The Krathon pod crashed through the outer wall. The medical bay lost atmosphere for a moment before emergency seals activated. The Krathon soldiers came through expecting to find terrified medical staff. Instead, they found humans ready for war. The firefight was short and brutal. The Krathon had superior numbers, but they were trapped in a killing field. Human weapons fire cut through them with deadly accuracy. Those who tried to retreat found no escape. In 6 minutes it was over. 30 Krathon soldiers lay dead or dying. Not a single human had fallen. Amy tapped her communicator. Medical bay secure, Captain. No human casualties. Minor ammunition expenditure. Back on the command bridge, Zelthor heard the report and could not believe it. 13 humans had defeated 30 Krathon warriors in close quarters combat with no losses. It was impossible. Except it had just happened. How? Zelthor asked Morrison. How are your people doing this? Morrison looked at him with those steady blue eyes. Commander, let me tell you about Earth. Our planet has tried to kill us for our entire existence. Ice ages that should have wiped us out. Diseases that killed millions. Predators that hunted us. Natural disasters that destroyed cities. We survived all of it. But many species face hardship, Zelthor said. Not like Earth, Morrison replied. Do you know what the gravity on your homeworld is? 0.6 Earth standard, Zelthor said. Every human you see here has been living and training in gravity almost twice what you experience. When we move in your environment, we are faster and stronger than we are at home. And even at home, we evolved to hunt down prey over long distances. We evolved to keep fighting through pain and injury. We evolved to never give up because giving up on Earth meant death. Venlith pulled up more data on his screens. Captain, I have been analyzing human physiology. You have redundant organs. Your blood can clot wounds in seconds. Your bones are dense enough to withstand impacts that would shatter Quillarian skeletons. Your immune system fights a constant war inside your body against microscopic predators. You mean bacteria and viruses? Morrison asked. Yes. On Earth, you are constantly under attack by millions of hostile organisms. Your body has to fight them off every moment of every day. Most coalition species evolved on worlds where such threats do not exist in significant numbers. So what you are saying, Zelthor said slowly, understanding dawning, is that humans are always in combat mode. Even when not fighting, your bodies are designed for war. More or less, Morrison agreed. We call it the human condition. It makes us tough. It makes us hard to kill. And it makes us very, very good at fighting when we need to. The space battle continued to rage outside. The coalition fleet was holding its own, largely because the Krathon could not predict their movements anymore. Human tactical advice had made the coalition ships dangerous for the first time. 3 weeks had passed since the battle at Viridian Prime. News of the human warriors had spread across coalition space like wildfire. Every species in the Galactic Coalition was talking about the Hellworlders, who had saved an entire system with only 200 soldiers. Commander Zelthor sat in a conference room with representatives from the Coalition High Council. They had gathered via holographic communication from across the galaxy. The council chamber displayed the images of 12 species, all wanting to discuss the same topic. Humans. Councillor Thrain, an elderly Palaxian with silver tentacles, spoke first. Commander Zelthor, we have read your report multiple times. The numbers seem impossible. 200 soldiers held off a Krathon assault force that should have overwhelmed your station. Explain how this happened. Zelthor took a breath. Counselors, I did not believe it myself until I witnessed it. The humans fight unlike any species we have encountered. They are stronger, faster, and more resilient than our forces. They do not break under pressure. They do not retreat from impossible odds. And most importantly, they understand warfare in ways we have forgotten. We have not forgotten warfare. Councillor Nexon protested. The insectoid representative's wings buzzed with agitation. We simply choose peace. With respect, Councillor, there is a difference between choosing peace and being unprepared for war, Zelthor said. The Krathon have shown us that choice was naive. We need allies who can fight. The humans can fight. They are willing to fight for us. Another councillor, a crystalline being named Sherith, displayed data on the shared screens. We have completed our analysis of Earth. The planet has been reclassified as a Class 15 deathworld. That is the highest classification we have ever recorded. Murmurs rippled through the council. Class 15 was unheard of. Most coalition species came from Class 3 or 4 worlds, Sherith continued. Earth experiences regular earthquakes, hurricanes, tornadoes, tsunamis, volcanic eruptions, and extreme temperature variations. The atmosphere contains high levels of oxygen, which is actually toxic to several coalition species. The gravity is 0.95 standard, nearly triple what most of us evolved in. The planet is home to millions of species, many of which are predators. And the microscopic life is so aggressive that humans have evolved complex immune systems that are constantly fighting off infections. How did intelligent life even survive there? Asked Councillor Thrain. That is exactly the point, Zelthor said. Humans survived because they had to. They evolved to overcome every challenge their planet threw at them, and now they have technology, organization, and weapons. They are predators who learn to think, to plan, to work together. The Krathon are warriors, but humans are something more dangerous. They are survivors who refuse to lose. The council debated for hours. Finally, they reached a decision. We will extend a formal military alliance to Earth, Councillor Thrain announced. We will request additional human forces to assist in the defense of coalition space. Commander Zelthor, you will remain as the primary liaison with the human military. Coordinate their integration into our defense forces. Zelthor felt relief wash over him. Thank you, counselors. I will contact Earth immediately. The communication with Earth took 2 days to arrange due to the distance. When the connection finally established, Zelthor found himself speaking with a human general named Patricia Hayes. General Hayes was a woman in her 50s with short gray hair and sharp green eyes. She wore a military uniform covered in ribbons and medals. She looked like someone who had seen many wars and won them all. Commander Zelthor, I have read Captain Morrison's report, Hayes said. I understand you want more human soldiers. Yes, General. The Coalition formally requests military assistance from Earth. We face an existential threat from the Krathon Empire. Your soldiers proved their effectiveness at Viridian Prime. We hope Earth can send more forces to help us. Hayes nodded. Earth is prepared to commit to this alliance. We will send an expeditionary force of 50,000 soldiers along with support ships and equipment. Zelthor felt disappointed. 50,000 seemed like a small number. The coalition had billions of citizens. The Krathon Empire had trillions. He had hoped for millions of human soldiers. Hayes seemed to read his expression. Commander, I understand that may seem like a small force. But I assure you, 50,000 human soldiers will make a significant impact. We also offer training programs for coalition forces. If your people are willing to learn, we can teach them how to fight more effectively. We accept your offer, General. Thank you. One more thing, Commander. I am sending Colonel Ryan Peters to take overall command of human forces in coalition space. He is one of our best. He will coordinate with you directly. 2 weeks later, the human expeditionary force arrived at the main coalition military base on the planet Quilath. The arrival caused quite a scene. 50 transport ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel in formation. They were escorted by 30 human warships. The fleet was small compared to coalition navies, but the ships looked dangerous. They were heavily armed and armored, designed for war rather than exploration. Colonel Ryan Peters was a tall man in his 40s with dark skin and intense brown eyes. He had a scar running down his left cheek and a bearing that commanded immediate respect. When he walked into the command center, every coalition officer stood a little straighter. Commander Zelthor, Peters said, extending his hand. It is an honor to serve alongside the coalition. The honor is ours, Colonel. Your arrival gives us hope. Over the following days, human forces integrated into coalition defenses, but it was not an easy process. The differences between species became immediately apparent. Training exercises revealed the vast gap in capabilities. Human soldiers could carry equipment that required powered assistance for coalition troops. They could operate in environmental conditions that would kill most coalition species. They could fight for hours without rest while coalition soldiers needed frequent breaks. One training exercise paired human Marines with Quilarian soldiers for a simulated combat scenario. The results were embarrassing for the coalition forces. Sergeant Kyle Bennett led a mixed unit through a training course designed to simulate a Krathon base assault. The objective was to breach the facility, eliminate defenders, and secure a target within 30 minutes. The Quilarian soldiers struggled from the start. The gravity on the training planet was 0.7 standard, which felt normal to them but was low for humans. Bennett and his Marines moved through the course like they were flying, using the low gravity to make incredible leaps and rapid advances. Keep up, Bennett called to the Quilarians. We cannot wait for you in a real battle. The Quilarian squad leader, a young officer named Telmex, tried his best. But his soldiers were exhausted within 10 minutes. They could not match the human pace. When simulated enemy fire began, the Quilarians took cover and returned fire cautiously, following their training. Bennett and his squad did something completely different. They charged forward under fire, using speed and aggression to close the distance. They threw grenades, performed flanking maneuvers, and moved through the training course like a violent storm. The exercise ended in 12 minutes. Bennett's squad had secured the objective. The Quilarian squad was still pinned down at the entrance by simulated enemy fire. Telmex approached Bennett after the exercise, his skin flushed with embarrassment. Sergeant, I apologize. My soldiers performed poorly. Bennett shook his head. No, Lieutenant. Your soldiers followed their training. The problem is that your training is designed for peacekeeping, not war. You were taught to minimize risk and casualties. That is good for police work. But in war against an aggressive enemy, you need to take risks. You need to be more aggressive than they are. But that seems reckless, Telmex said. There is a difference between reckless and aggressive, Bennett explained. Reckless gets you killed. Aggressive wins battles. Let me teach you the difference. Similar scenes played out across the training facilities. Human soldiers were patient teachers, but they demanded high standards. They pushed coalition troops harder than they had ever been pushed before. Some coalition species simply could not meet human standards. Their biology would not allow it. But they learned other skills. Humans taught them better tactics, better communication, and better strategic thinking. Not everyone appreciated the human presence. Some coalition officers resented being shown up by the newcomers. Some politicians worried about human influence on coalition culture. But the soldiers who trained alongside humans came away changed. They had seen what was possible. They had learned what real warriors looked like. Ambassador Thylex, the Palaxian diplomat who had first made contact with Earth, sent regular reports back to the Coalition Council. The humans are transforming our military, one report stated, not just through their participation but through their example. Our soldiers see humans operating at levels we thought impossible. It is inspiring them to work harder, train longer, and believe they can win. Morale is improving across all divisions. The Krathon Empire noticed the change as well. Their intelligence reports spoke of humans with growing concern. The new species the Coalition has allied with are unlike any we have encountered, one Krathon general reported to his emperor. They fight. The warning came 3 days later. Coalition long-range sensors detected a massive Krathon fleet gathering at the edge of their territory. Colonel Peters had been right. The Krathon were preparing a major assault. 73 ships, the sensor officer reported to Commander Zelthor. More than we estimated. They are forming up in attack formation. What is their heading? Zelthor asked, though he already knew the answer. Quelar, sir. They are coming for the homeworld. Zelthor activated the emergency communication system. Within hours, every Coalition ship in range was moving toward Quelar. Human forces mobilized with impressive speed. Colonel Peters coordinated the defense from the orbital command station above Quelar. The Coalition had assembled 38 warships for the defense. Along with the human fleet of 30 ships, they had 68 vessels total. They were still outnumbered. Those are not good odds, Zelthor said, looking at the tactical display. No, but they could be worse, Peters replied. We have the defensive advantage. We know the terrain. And we have something they do not expect. What is that? Us, Captain Jake Morrison said, entering the command center with Lieutenant Amy Chen. The Krathon have faced Coalition forces. They have not faced a Coalition force with humans fully integrated into the defense. We are going to teach them a lesson. On the surface of Quelar, Sergeant Kyle Bennett was preparing ground defenses with his expanded company. He now commanded 200 human Marines and 500 Coalition soldiers who had trained with human forces. The Coalition troops looked nervous. Quelar had not seen warfare in 3,000 years. The idea of battle happening on their homeworld was terrifying. Listen up, Bennett addressed his mixed force. I know you are scared. That is normal before combat. Fear keeps you alert. But fear cannot control you. We have prepared for this. We have trained for this. We know what to do. Trust your training. Trust each other. And trust that we will not let the Krathon take this planet. Am I clear? Yes, Sergeant, the human Marines shouted. The Coalition soldiers responded more quietly, but they responded. That was progress. Bennett turned to his second-in-command, a Quilarian lieutenant named Telmex. How are your soldiers? Frightened, Telmex admitted. But ready. You have taught us well, Sergeant. We will not fail. Good man. Now let us get to our positions. The Krathon will be here soon. In orbit, the human warships took strategic positions throughout the defensive fleet. Each human vessel was paired with Coalition ships, providing coordination and tactical support. Lieutenant Marcus Webb sat in the cockpit of his fighter, callsign Havoc. Around him, 23 other human pilots prepared for launch. The fighter squadron was attached to the Coalition carrier Brightness. All fighters, this is Havoc. Marcus spoke into his communication system. Remember your briefing. The Krathon fighters are tough, but they fly in predictable patterns. Use your speed. Stay unpredictable. Work in pairs. Watch each other's backs. Havoc, this is Phantom, another pilot responded. What if we get overwhelmed? Then, we make them pay for every meter of space, Marcus said simply. They want this planet? They are going to have to go through us first, and we do not go down easy. The Krathon fleet arrived in a display of overwhelming force. 73 massive warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel in formation. They looked like a wall of metal and weapons ready to crush anything in their path. On the Krathon flagship, Emperor Grathzul studied the defensive fleet with satisfaction. They brought only 68 ships to defend their most important world. This will be easier than I thought. His admiral hesitated. My lord, our intelligence reports indicate the humans are here, the ones from the deathworld. 200 primitives cannot change the outcome of this battle. Grathzul said dismissively. "Begin the attack. I want that planet under our control by nightfall." The Krathon fleet advanced in their standard formation, confident in their numerical superiority. That confidence lasted approximately 7 minutes. Colonel Peters did not wait for the Krathon to dictate the terms of battle. The moment they were in range, he launched his attack. "All ships execute Plan Omega," Peters ordered. "Hit them now." The coalition fleet split into 3 groups, each led by human warships. They did not meet the Krathon head-on. Instead, they came at them from angles, targeting the flanks and creating crossfire opportunities. Human fighters launched in waves, faster and more aggressive than anything the Krathon had encountered before. Marcus Webb led his squadron straight into the Krathon fighter screen. "Break and attack," Marcus shouted. "Pairs like we practiced." The human fighters scattered into the Krathon formation, refusing to engage in the predictable dogfights the Krathon expected. Instead, they used hit-and-run tactics, striking fast and moving on before the enemy could respond effectively. Marcus dove under a Krathon heavy fighter, fired a missile that struck its engines, and was already banking away before the explosion occurred. His wingman, callsign Ghost, covered his retreat and took out another enemy fighter. This is havoc to all fighters. They are disorganized. Press the attack. The space battle turned chaotic. The Krathon fleet tried to maintain formation, but the human tactics disrupted everything they had planned. Coalition ships following human commands attacked with an aggression they had never shown before. On the Krathon flagship, Admiral Tarkesh watched his battle plan fall apart. "My lord, the enemy is not fighting as expected. They are using irregular tactics. Our formations are breaking down. Bring order," Grathzul roared. "We have superior numbers. Crush them." But numbers meant less when you could not bring them to bear effectively. Human strategies kept the Krathon fleet off balance, always reacting instead of executing their plan. "Krathon boarding pods launching," the sensor officer reported on the Coalition command station. "They are targeting the surface, multiple landing zones across the planet." "Let them land," Peters said calmly. "Sergeant Bennett is waiting for them." On the surface, Bennett watched the Krathon pods streak through the atmosphere and crash into the ground, 3 kilometers from their position. Hundreds of Krathon soldiers poured out, forming up for an assault on the nearby city. "They are going for the civilian centers," Telmex said, his voice tight with fear. "We have to stop them." "We will," Bennett said, "but we do it smart. We do not charge into their guns. We make them come to us, then we hit them from positions they do not expect." Bennett had spent the past 3 days preparing the battlefield. He had set up defensive positions, cleared fields of fire, and prepared fallback routes. He had turned the approach to the city into a killing field. The Krathon advance began confidently. They had superior numbers and had defeated coalition ground forces many times before. Then the first mines detonated. The Krathon formation shattered as explosions tore through their ranks. Before they could recover, fire opened up from concealed positions on both flanks. Human Marines and coalition soldiers fired in coordinated volleys. The Krathon took heavy casualties immediately. They tried to charge the positions only to run into more mines and more withering fire. "Fall back to secondary positions," Bennett ordered after the first engagement. "Make them follow us." The human and coalition forces retreated in good order, drawing the Krathon deeper into the prepared battlefield. Every meter the Krathon advanced cost them dearly. Private Lisa Rodriguez had set up numerous defensive obstacles throughout the approach routes. When the Krathon tried to use the main road, they found it blocked by debris and covered by fire positions. When they tried to go around, they encountered more obstacles and more ambushes. "They are getting frustrated," Rodriguez reported from her position. "They are making mistakes." "Good," Bennett replied. "Frustrated enemies make bad decisions. Keep hitting them." The battle on the surface raged for hours. The Krathon had superior numbers, but they were fighting on terrain the defenders controlled. Every building, every street, every position had been chosen to maximize defensive advantage. Telmex led his Quilarian soldiers with growing confidence. He had been terrified at the start of the battle, but seeing the human tactics work filled him with courage. His soldiers followed Bennett's training, moved like Bennett taught them, and fought like they had seen the humans fight. "We are holding them!" Telmex shouted to his squad. "Keep fighting!" In space, the battle had turned into a brutal slugging match. The Krathon fleet outnumbered the defenders, but they were taking terrible losses. Human weapons proved devastatingly effective. Human tactics kept them off balance. Captain Morrison commanded one of the human warships, the Defender. His vessel had taken damage, but he refused to retreat. When a Krathon heavy cruiser tried to bypass the defensive line to bombard the planet directly, Morrison positioned his ship in the way. "Helm, put us between that cruiser and Quillar," Morrison ordered. "Sir, that will put us in direct fire," his executive officer protested. "I know. Do it anyway. They are not getting past us." The Defender took position, and the Krathon cruiser opened fire. Shields flared under the assault. The ship shook with impacts. But Morrison's crew fought back with everything they had. "Target their shield generators," Morrison ordered. "Fire all weapons." The Defender's guns blazed. The exchange was brutal. Both ships took terrible damage, but the Defender held position, refusing to move. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Quillar. The entire galaxy knew what had happened that day. The Krathon Empire, which had seemed unstoppable, had retreated from a battle they should have won easily. The reason was simple. Humans. Commander Zelthor stood in the rebuilt command center, now twice its original size to accommodate the expanded coalition military operations. The past months had brought enormous changes. "Status report," Zelthor requested. His tactical officer, a young Quillarian who had fought at Quillar, responded with confidence. "All defensive stations report ready status. Human training protocols have been implemented across 70% of coalition forces. Morale is at the highest level in recorded history." Zelthor nodded with satisfaction. The Battle of Quillar had changed everything. Coalition species who had accepted peace as their only option now understood they could defend themselves. They could fight. They could win. Colonel Ryan Peters entered the command center. He had been promoted to general and now served as the coalition's chief military advisor. Behind him walked Captain Jake Morrison, now a major, and Lieutenant Amy Chen, now a captain. "Commander, we have just received interesting news from Krathon space," Peters said, displaying a holographic report. "There has been a political upheaval in their empire." "What kind of upheaval?" Zelthor asked. "Emperor Grathzul has been removed from power. The Krathon military commanders staged what they call a correction of leadership. The new emperor is someone named Vrathkor. He has sent a message to the coalition." "What does it say?" Peters pulled up the message. It was short and direct. "The Krathon Empire proposes a ceasefire and negotiation of borders. They no longer seek expansion into coalition space." The command center fell silent. After nearly a year of brutal war, the Krathon were asking for peace. "Is this a trick?" Zelthor asked. "Our intelligence says no," Captain Amy Chen replied. "The Krathon military lost too many ships and soldiers. Their economy is strained. And more importantly, they are afraid. They do not want to face humans again." Morrison smiled slightly. "Fear is a powerful motivator. They realized we would make any conquest too expensive to be worthwhile." Ambassador Thylex arrived at the command center, his tentacles waving with excitement. "The Coalition Council has reviewed the Krathon proposal. They wish to accept the ceasefire and begin peace negotiations. Commander Zelthor, you and General Peters will represent the Coalition at the negotiations." The peace talks took place on a neutral station between Coalition and Krathon space. Zelthor had never seen a Krathon emperor in person before. Vrathkor was massive, easily 3 meters tall, with thick armored plates covering his body and 4 powerful arms. But what struck Zelthor most was the emperor's eyes. They held something Zelthor never expected to see in a Krathon leader: respect. "Commander Zelthor," Vrathkor said in his deep, rumbling voice. "General Peters, I am pleased to meet representatives of such a formidable alliance." "Emperor Vrathkor," Zelthor responded carefully. "Your message surprised us. The Krathon Empire has never sought peace before. The Krathon Empire never faced an enemy like the Coalition with human assistance," Vrathkor said bluntly. "My predecessor was a fool. He believed strength alone guaranteed victory. He was wrong. The humans taught us that survival and adaptability are also forms of strength." Peters remained silent, letting Zelthor lead the negotiations as they had planned. What does the Krathon Empire want? Zeltor asked. Peace with honor, Vrathkor said. We keep the territories we conquered before the human alliance was formed. The coalition keeps its original space and any territories it has liberated. We establish clear borders and agree not to cross them militarily. What about the 12 systems your empire conquered? Zeltor asked. Those were coalition members. They remain Krathon territory, Vrathkor said firmly. This is not negotiable. We will not give up what we fought for. Zelthor started to protest, but Peters placed a hand on his arm. May I speak, Commander? Zelthor nodded. Peters looked at Vrathkor directly. Emperor, you are right that strength matters. But you are also learning about other kinds of power. Economic power, diplomatic power. Right now, the coalition controls trade routes worth trillions. Your empire needs trade to rebuild after your losses. We can offer that trade or we can deny it. Vrathkor's expression did not change, but Zelthor noticed a slight tension in his posture. Peters continued. Here is our counteroffer. You keep 10 of the 12 conquered systems. 2 systems. Those with the largest civilian populations are returned to coalition control. In exchange, we establish trade agreements that benefit both parties. We agree to defined borders with neutral zones. And most importantly, we establish a mutual defense pact. You want the Krathon to defend the coalition? Vrathkor said, sounding surprised. No, Peters said. I want us to defend each other against future threats. The galaxy is large. There are other empires, other dangers. An alliance between the coalition and the Krathon Empire would be the most powerful force in this region of space. No one would dare attack either of us. Zelthor looked at Peters in shock. The general had just proposed allying with their enemy. But as he thought about it, he realized it was brilliant. Keep your enemies close. Turn them into partners. Vrathkor considered the proposal for a long moment. You humans are interesting beings. You defeat us in battle, then offer us partnership. Most species would seek revenge. Revenge is expensive and accomplishes little, Peters said. Partnership is profitable and beneficial for everyone. Humans learned long ago that making allies is better than making enemies, even enemies you defeated. I will consider your offer, Vrathkor said. We will meet again tomorrow. That night, Zelthor spoke with Peters privately. General, are you certain this alliance is wise? The Krathon killed thousands of coalition citizens. I know, Peters said, and that cannot be forgotten. But continuing the war will kill thousands more. This way we end the bloodshed and create stability. Sometimes the best victory is the one where everyone walks away alive. That is a very human perspective, Zelthor observed. Peters smiled. Yes, it is. Humans have fought many wars throughout our history. We learned that the wars that end in peace agreements last longer than the wars that end in total victory. Defeated enemies seek revenge. Respected partners seek cooperation. The next day, Vrathkor agreed to the proposal with minor modifications. The war officially ended with a treaty that surprised the entire galaxy. News of the peace spread quickly. But the galaxy did not react with relief alone. Other empires took notice. Humanity had defeated the Krathon Empire and then turned them into allies. It was a display of power, both military and diplomatic. The Velar Federation, a neighboring empire, sent a diplomatic mission to Earth. The Corvan Alliance requested human military advisors. The Nexian Confederacy proposed trade agreements. Everyone wanted humanity's friendship and feared their opposition. On Earth, General Patricia Hayes met with the planet's leadership to discuss their role in galactic affairs. The United Nations had formed a new organization called the Terran Expeditionary Authority to handle off-world military operations. Earth has become a major power in galactic politics, Hayes reported. Every species wants to know what we will do next. How we will use our influence. What do you recommend, General? The UN Secretary-General asked. We stay true to who we are, Hayes said. We help those who need help. We defend those who cannot defend themselves. We promote peace but prepare for war. We do not seek to dominate, but we do not allow others to dominate us or our allies. That is the human way. Back in coalition space, life was changing rapidly. Human presence had transformed coalition culture in unexpected ways. Sergeant Kyle Bennett, now Captain Bennett, ran a training facility on Quelar. He had 5,000 coalition soldiers from various species learning human combat techniques and military philosophy. Lieutenant Telmex, now Captain Telmex, served as his second-in-command. The Quelarian officer had become one of the best coalition soldiers, having learned directly from Bennett. The new recruits arrive tomorrow, Telmex reported. 3,000 Quilarians, 1,000 Palaxians, and 800 Nexians. They are eager to train with humans. Bennett nodded. Good, we will make soldiers out of them. Real soldiers who can protect their families and their worlds. Sir, may I ask you something personal? Telmex said. Go ahead. Why do humans care so much about protecting others? You could use your military power to conquer, to dominate, but you choose to help instead. Why? Bennett thought for a moment. Because we remember what it was like to be weak. Every human alive today is descended from people who survived impossible situations. Our ancestors faced predators, diseases, disasters, enemies. They survived because someone helped them. Someone taught them. Someone stood beside them when things were bad. That is our legacy. We help because we were helped. We protect because we were protected. It is who we are. That is a beautiful philosophy, Telmex said quietly. It is a human philosophy, Bennett corrected, but maybe it can become a coalition philosophy too. Meanwhile, Private Lisa Rodriguez, now Sergeant Rodriguez, had been assigned to Coalition Engineering Corps. She was teaching engineers from various species about human construction techniques and problem-solving approaches. The coalition engineers were amazed at human ingenuity.